Welcome back to Untold Revenge Files. Today, the story you're about to hear takes place in Hartwell, Massachusetts. My name is Maya Chin. I'm 31 years old, and for the last 6 years, I've been building something I thought would make my family proud. Instead, it became the very thing they used to humiliate me. The Gilded Crumb wasn't just a bakery. It was my heart, my hands, my sleepless nights, and my silent screams into kitchen towels when the burns were too fresh and the exhaustion too heavy. Every macaron tower, every wedding cake, every delicate sugar flower represented hours I could never get back. My arms told the story, a roadmap of scars from oven racks, splattered caramel, and steam burns that never quite faded. I wore them like medals I couldn't show anyone. But I didn't mind. Not really, because every dollar I earned went somewhere important, or at least, I thought it was important. For 5 years, I'd been paying for my parents' lifestyle, the mortgage on their pristine colonial home in the suburbs, my sister Claire's endless brand collaborations that somehow never actually paid, my father's country club membership, my mother's charity galas where she wore designer gowns and spoke about supporting local businesses while never once mentioning mine. I told myself it was love. That family takes care of family, that one day they'd see how hard I worked, how much I sacrificed, and they'd finally look at me the way they looked at Claire, with pride instead of pity. The call came on a Wednesday, right in the middle of our lunch rush. My phone buzzed against the stainless steel counter, and I saw Mom flash across the screen. I almost didn't answer. Flour dusted my cheek, my hands were sticky with ganache, and I had 12 cream puffs in the oven with exactly 4 minutes left. But I answered. I always answered. "Maya, darling, I need to talk to you about Saturday." My mother's voice had that particular tone, the one she used when she was about to deliver bad news but wanted it to sound like a favor. "Saturday?" I wedged the phone between my shoulder and ear, piping cream into pastry shells. "Claire's engagement dinner, right? I already RSVP'd. I was going to bring those raspberry tarts she loves." "Yes, well, that's what I need to discuss." A pause. I could hear the hesitation, the calculation. "Sweetheart, I think it might be best if you sat this one out." My hands stopped moving. "What?" "It's just that Claire has worked so hard on the aesthetic for this event. She has photographers coming, and you know how important her social media presence is for her career. The venue is very upscale, very elegant, and—" She sighed, like this was painful for her. "Honey, you work with your hands. You're wonderful at what you do, but you always have those marks all over your arms, and with the dress code being cocktail attire, there's really no way to hide them. Claire just thinks it might not photograph well." The room tilted slightly. Around me, my staff continued working, measuring, mixing, laughing. They had no idea my mother had just uninvited me from my own sister's engagement party because my burn scars didn't fit the Instagram aesthetic. "Mom, these are from work. From building a business?" "I know, sweetheart, and we're all very proud of your little bakery. But this is Claire's special night. Sebastian's family will be there. Very prominent people, old money, and we need to make the right impression. You understand, don't you? You've always been so understanding. Before I tell you exactly what my mother said next, tell me, what time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I'm really curious to see how far this story will travel." My throat felt tight. "I've been sending you money for 5 years, Mom. I paid for the venue deposit for this dinner." "And that's exactly the kind of generosity that makes you so special, Maya. This is just about optics. Surely you can see that?" Her voice brightened, as if she'd solved everything. "We'll do a family brunch soon, just us. Somewhere casual where you'll be more comfortable." Somewhere casual. Where I'd be more comfortable. As if I was the problem. As if the scars I earned feeding their lifestyle were something shameful. "I have to go," I whispered. "The oven timer's going off." I hung up before she could respond. The cream puff batter was perfect. Golden, airy, exactly right. My vision blurred as I pulled them from the oven, and I realized I was crying. One of my employees, Marcus, touched my shoulder gently. "Boss, you okay?" I nodded, wiping my face with the back of my hand, leaving a streak of flour across my cheek. Yeah, just family stuff. He didn't push. That's what I loved about my bakery family. They respected boundaries, showed up when it mattered, asked for nothing but fair pay and respect. Everything my real family had never done. That night I stayed late, going through my bank statements, 5 years of transfers, thousands and thousands of dollars, the mortgage payments, the credit card bills I'd quietly absorbed, the emergency car repair that turned out to be a lease on a BMW, the temporary help that became permanent. I'd been robbing my own business, my own future, to maintain their image, and I wasn't even allowed at the party I'd partially funded because I looked too much like someone who actually worked for a living. I closed my laptop and looked around my empty bakery. Display cases gleamed. The scent of vanilla and butter still hung in the air. This place was mine. I'd built it from nothing, and I was bleeding it dry for people who saw me as an embarrassment. I had no idea that the next morning would finally break me and change everything. The pounding on the bakery's front door started at 6:47 a.m., 13 minutes before we opened. I was already elbow-deep in brioche dough, having arrived at 4 to start the day's prep work. The pounding didn't stop. Through the glass, I saw my mother, my father, and Claire, all of them, at my bakery, at dawn. I should have known better, but I unlocked the door. My mother swept in like a storm system, Claire trailing behind her scrolling on her phone, my father looking vaguely uncomfortable. None of them said good morning. None of them acknowledged Marcus or Jenny, who were prepping stations in the back. Maya, thank God you're here. My mother pressed a hand to her chest like she'd been worried. We have an absolute emergency. What's wrong? My heart jumped despite everything. Is someone hurt? The caterer for Saturday canceled. Just completely fell through. Claire finally looked up from her phone, her eyes wide with manufactured panic. We need you to make desserts for the engagement party, 200 servings. We need petit fours, macarons, those little chocolate dome things, maybe a small cake display. Wait. I held up my flour-covered hands. Saturday? That's 3 days away. Claire, I'd need at least 2 weeks for an order that size, and my schedule is completely— You're her sister. My mother's voice went cold. Surely you can make room for family. The word family landed like a slap. Family. The same family that uninvited me 36 hours ago. I wasn't important enough to attend, I said quietly. But I'm important enough to provide free labor? My father shifted uncomfortably. Maya, let's not be dramatic. Your mother explained that it was just a space issue. No, I shook my head. She said my burn scars didn't fit the aesthetic. She uninvited me because I look like someone who works for a living. Claire rolled her eyes. Oh my God, Maya, not everything is about you. This is my engagement party. Can you please just help us out? You literally own a bakery. This is what you do. What I do, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands, is run a business, and business orders require advance notice, contracts, and payment. Payment? My mother's laugh was sharp. You want to charge your own family? You charge me rent to exist in your life. I'd say we're even. The air in the bakery went still. Marcus had stopped working. I could feel him listening, ready to intervene if needed. That is incredibly unfair, my mother said, her voice dripping with wounded indignation. We have never asked you for anything we didn't desperately need. Everything you've given us has been out of love and generosity. Are you really going to throw that in our faces now? Given you, Mom, you've taken $50,000 from me over 5 years. I don't even know if you realize how much— We didn't ask you to do that, Claire snapped. You volunteered. You kept saying you wanted to help, and now you're acting like we forced you. My chest tightened. She was right, in the cruelest possible way. I had volunteered. I had offered. I had kept giving because I thought eventually it would be enough. Eventually they'd love me the way I needed to be loved. I can't do your order, I said firmly. I'm booked solid. Can't or won't? My father's voice was quiet, disappointed, the tone that always made me feel 6 years old and desperate for approval. Both. Claire's face flushed red. You're jealous. You're jealous that I'm getting married to someone successful, someone important, and you're still just. She gestured around the bakery with disgust. Just a baker in an apron, covered in burns, alone. The words hit exactly where she aimed them. Just a baker, I repeated softly. Claire, that's enough, my father said, but weakly, without conviction. The bell over the door chimed. We all turned. A man in an immaculate charcoal suit stepped inside, his presence somehow making my small bakery feel even smaller. He was tall, probably early 40s, with dark hair silvering at the temples and eyes that looked like they didn't miss anything. I recognized him from the photos Claire had been posting obsessively. Sebastian Wolf, the fiancé. Sebastian! Claire's entire demeanor transformed, her voice going sugary sweet. What are you doing here, baby? He didn't look at her. He was looking at me. Maya Chen? I straightened, suddenly very aware of the flour on my apron, the exhaustion under my eyes, the burn scar peeking out from under my sleeve. That's me. I've been trying to reach you for 3 months. His voice was calm, measured. Your father keeps telling my people you're not interested in discussing business opportunities. The room went very, very quiet. Business opportunities? I repeated slowly. Sebastian pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, and turned it toward my father. I sent 12 emails to the contact listed on the Gilded Crumbs website. That's your email address, isn't it, Richard? My father's face went pale. What business opportunities? My voice was louder now. Sebastian finally looked at Claire, then back at me. I've been trying to offer you a partnership. My investment group wants to expand your bakery internationally. We've been following your work for over a year. Your desserts won awards at the International Pastry Competition in Paris. You placed 3rd in the world, Maya. Do you know how extraordinary that is? I did know. I'd never told my family because they'd never asked. Your father told my team you weren't interested in expanding, that you preferred to keep things small and local. Sebastian's tone was carefully neutral, but I could hear the edge underneath. I'm starting to wonder if that was true. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. My father had been blocking opportunities, keeping me small, keeping me financially stretched, keeping me dependent on the bakery's modest income so I'd keep sending them money. You knew, I whispered, looking at my father. You knew someone wanted to invest in me and you sabotaged it. I was protecting you, he said desperately. These corporate types, they take over everything. They'd turn your art into some assembly line. You were protecting yourself. My voice broke. You were protecting your mortgage payments. My mother reached for me. Maya, sweetheart, you're misunderstanding. I stepped back. Her hand fell through empty air. I looked at Claire, at her horrified expression as she realized her fiancé had come here for me, not her. I looked at my parents, at the panic in their eyes as they watched their safety net unravel. I looked at Sebastian, this stranger who'd seen value in my work when my own family only saw something to exploit. I'm done, I said. I untied my apron, folded it carefully, and set it on the counter. Then I pulled out my phone and right there in front of all of them blocked my mother's number. Then my father's. Then Claire's. Marcus, I called to my assistant manager. You're in charge today. I'll be back tomorrow, but right now I need to not be here. You got it, boss, he said quietly. I walked toward the door. Sebastian stepped aside to let me pass. Maya! My mother's voice was shrill now, desperate. You can't just walk away from your family. I stopped in the doorway, not turning around. Watch me. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a splitting headache, but something else too. A lightness in my chest I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, I wasn't calculating how much I owed them, how much they needed, how I could make myself smaller to fit their image of me. I was done shrinking. It was time to finally see how big I could become. 3 months later, I signed the partnership agreement with Wolf International in a downtown conference room that overlooked the harbor. My hands shook as I wrote my name, but not from fear, from anticipation. Sebastian slid a portfolio across the table. Tokyo, Paris, and London to start. If the flagship locations perform well, we expand to Dubai and Singapore. You maintain full creative control. We handle logistics, real estate, and operations. Why me? I'd asked him this before, but I needed to hear it again. Because you're brilliant, he said simply. And because you care. Every recipe, every detail, you put your whole heart into it. That's not something you can fake or manufacture. That's what makes a legacy brand. The Gilded Crumb 2.0 launched with fanfare I never could have imagined. Press coverage, a feature in Pastry Arts magazine, a waiting list for our masterclass workshops. I hired 12 new staff members, including 2 young pastry students I sponsored through culinary school. I'd blocked my family completely, but information still filtered through. My Aunt Susan, my mother's sister who'd always been kind to me, called one evening about 2 months in. "I'm not calling to guilt you," she said immediately. "I just thought you should know what's happening." I braced myself. Okay. Claire's engagement fell apart. Sebastian ended things about 3 weeks after the bakery incident. Your mother's been telling everyone it was mutual, but Claire's been posting some pretty desperate stuff on social media. Her follower count is dropping. People found out she'd been faking a lot of her sponsorships. I waited to feel satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. "And your parents put the house up for sale," Susan continued. "Without your help, they can't afford the mortgage. They're downsizing to a condo." She paused. "Your mother's not handling it well. She keeps saying you abandoned them." "I didn't abandon anyone," I said quietly. "I stopped letting them abandon me." "I know," Susan said. "I'm proud of you, Maya. I should have said something years ago. The way they treated you. It wasn't right." After we hung up, I sat in my new apartment, a small but sunlit space I'd rented near the bakery's test kitchen, and let myself feel it. Not the vindication, but the grief. Grief for the family I'd wanted. Grief for the daughter I'd tried to be. Grief for all the years I'd spent thinking love meant letting yourself be used. But underneath the grief was something else. Relief. Freedom. The bone-deep certainty that I'd made the right choice. Before I continue, I want to ask you something. Have you ever walked away from people you loved because staying was destroying you? How long did it take before you stopped feeling guilty? I'd love to know I'm not alone in this. 4 months after I'd walked out of my bakery that morning, The Gilded Crumb was featured in a documentary about innovative small businesses. The filmmaker had captured me teaching a class, my scarred arms visible as I demonstrated tempering chocolate. "These scars tell a story," I said to the camera, holding up my forearms. "They're proof that I've earned this, that I've put in the hours, paid the price, learned from every mistake. I used to hide them. Now they're my credentials." The documentary went viral. My inbox flooded with messages from other people who'd been told their hard work wasn't good enough, their scars weren't pretty enough, their dreams weren't prestigious enough. I'd become accidentally inspirational, but more than that, I'd become free. The call came from my mother exactly 6 months after I'd blocked her. She'd used a number I didn't recognize. My father's work phone, I later realized. "Maya." Her voice was different, smaller. "Please don't hang up." I almost did. My finger hovered over the end button, but something made me wait. "I saw the documentary," she continued. You looked happy." I didn't respond. "Things have been difficult since you left. Claire's struggling. Your father and I are in the condo now, and it's an adjustment. People keep asking about you, about your success, and I don't know what to say." "You could say you're proud of me," I offered. A long silence. Then, "I am. I think I always was. I didn't know how to show it in a way that mattered." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever gotten from her. "Oh, we need help, Maya." There it was, the real reason for the call. "Claire's therapist bills, the condo fees, your father's car payment. We're drowning. I know we hurt you. I know we took advantage, but we're family, and I'm begging you to help us one more time." Knowing my family was struggling should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like standing at a crossroads, holding everything I'd built in my hands, wondering if love meant lighting it all on fire to keep them warm. I wondered, when does forgiveness become self-destruction? And who gets to decide? 1 year after I blocked my family, I stood in a modern glass and steel space in Shibuya, Tokyo, watching construction crews put the finishing touches on the Gilded Crumbs flagship international location. Cherry blossom branches decorated the display cases, a blend of my American training and Japanese aesthetics that felt like a perfect representation of new beginnings. My life had transformed completely. I'd hired an assistant, traveled to 4 countries for location scouting, been interviewed by 3 major publications, and most importantly, built a team that felt like family. Real family. The kind that showed up, worked hard, celebrated successes, and didn't expect me to set myself on fire to keep them warm. The documentary had led to a book deal. The book led to a Netflix series in development. Everything I'd ever wanted was finally happening, and I didn't need my family's approval to enjoy it. But my mother's phone call from 6 months ago still echoed. I hadn't responded immediately. Instead, I'd spent weeks in therapy, unpacking the guilt, the obligation, the deeply ingrained belief that I owed them something simply because we shared DNA. My therapist asked me one question that changed everything. If a stranger had treated you this way, would you give them money? The answer was obvious. No, of course not. Then why? She'd pressed gently. Do you owe them more than you'd give a stranger? They've given you less. The email came while I was in Tokyo. From Claire this time. The subject line read, "Please read this. Maya, I know I don't deserve your time or attention. I know what I said to you was unforgivable. Just a baker." God, I've replayed that moment 1,000 times, and every time I hate myself more. I'm writing because Mom and Dad won't be honest with you, but I think you deserve the truth. We're not just struggling financially, we're in real trouble. Dad's hours got cut at work. Mom's charity board positions dried up when people realized she didn't actually have money anymore. I moved back in with them because I couldn't afford my apartment. Sebastian didn't just break up with me because of what happened at your bakery. He broke up with me because I was fake. Everything about my life was fake. The followers, the sponsorships, the perfect aesthetic. I was so busy trying to look successful that I never actually became anything real. You're real, Maya. Your scars, your bakery, your success. It's all real. You earned it. And we punished you for it because it made us feel small. I'm not asking you to forgive us. I'm not even asking you to help. I just wanted you to know that you were right to walk away. And I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to. Claire. I read the email 3 times. Then I called Sebastian, who'd become an unexpected friend over the past year. They reached out again? He guessed. How did you know? Because they always do. People who've relied on someone's generosity their whole lives don't easily accept that the well has dried up. He paused. What are you thinking? I'm thinking I miss having a family, I admitted. But I don't miss my family. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. You're grieving the family you deserved, not the family you had. He was right. I'd built something better, a team in Hartwell that ran the original bakery like clockwork, a partnership with Sebastian's company that was both profitable and respectful, friendships with other bakers and chefs who understood the scars, the hours, the passion. I didn't need to set myself on fire anymore. I was the light. I drafted my response to Claire carefully. Claire, I appreciate your honesty. I know how hard it must have been to write that. I forgive you, but forgiveness doesn't mean returning to how things were. You and Mom and Dad have each other. You have options, resources, and the ability to rebuild. I am not one of those resources anymore. I hope you find something real to build. I hope you discover who you are when you're not performing for an audience. I hope Mom and Dad find peace in a life that matches their actual means. I wish you all well. I mean that genuinely. But I won't be funding your lifestyle, managing your crises, or setting aside my dreams to make yours more comfortable. I did that for 5 years, and it nearly destroyed me. I'm not taking anything from you by setting this boundary. I'm just keeping what's mine. Take care of yourself. Maya, I hit send before I could second guess it. 3 weeks later, back in Hartwell for a management meeting, I ran into my mother at the grocery store. She looked older, more tired. She was wearing a normal coat, no designer labels visible. She saw me, and I watched her face cycle through emotions, surprise, hope, shame. Maya, she said quietly. Mom. We stood there in the produce section, two people who used to share everything and now shared nothing but blood and awkward silence. "The Tokyo location looks beautiful," she said. "I saw the photos online." "Thank you. You're doing exactly what you were meant to do." Her eyes were wet. "I'm sorry I couldn't see it before. I'm sorry I made you feel like you weren't enough when really, I was the one who wasn't enough. Not as a mother, not as a person. It was the apology I'd waited years to hear, and standing there, holding organic spinach and a future brighter than anything I'd imagined, I realized something. I didn't need it anymore. "I hope you find happiness, Mom. Real happiness, not just the appearance of it." "Will I ever see you again?" she asked, her voice breaking. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Maybe someday. But not while I'm still rebuilding what you tore down. Not while you're still expecting me to save you." She nodded, tears spilling over. "You look good, sweetheart. Healthy. Happy." "I am," I said. And it was true. I walked away. Not dramatically, not angrily, just calmly selecting vegetables and continuing with my life. Behind me, I heard her quiet sob, and I felt the old pull to turn around, to fix it, to make her feel better. But I kept walking. 6 months later, I attended the grand opening of the Gilded Crumb Tokyo with a crowd of international press, food critics, and supporters. Marcus flew in from Hartwell with half the original team. We stood together, arms around each other's shoulders, looking at this beautiful space we'd built. "Your family missing this," Marcus said quietly. "That's their loss." "I know," I said, "but look at the family that showed up." He squeezed my shoulder. Around us, people laughed, ate pastries dusted with edible gold, and celebrated something I'd created from nothing but flour, fire, and the stubborn refusal to let anyone make me feel small again. So after everything you've heard, if you were standing where I am now, with family asking you to choose between your peace and their comfort, would you give in and call it love? Or would you choose freedom and call it self-respect? I chose myself. And I'd make that choice again every single day. Sometimes walking away isn't losing everything. Sometimes it's reclaiming yourself. And sometimes the family you choose is worth more than the family you were given. The scars on my arms tell my story. But I'm the one writing the ending now. Maya's journey wasn't about revenge. It was about recognition, recognizing her worth, recognizing the difference between love and exploitation, recognizing that sometimes the people who are supposed to lift you up are the very ones holding you down. She didn't destroy her family. She simply stopped destroying herself for them. And that's the lesson I want you to take from this story today. You are not responsible for funding someone else's illusions. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. And you are absolutely not obligated to accept crumbs of affection from people you're feeding full meals. So let me ask you this, and I really want you to answer in the comments. Have you ever been the Maya in your own family? The one who gave everything and got nothing but judgment in return? The one whose sacrifices were invisible until you stopped making them? Or maybe you've been the Claire, realizing too late that you took someone for granted, and now you're watching them thrive without you. Drop a 1 if you've ever walked away from family for your own peace. Drop a 2 if you're still trying to find the courage to set that boundary. And drop a 3 if this story hit way too close to home. Remember, forgiveness does not require reconciliation. Loving someone does not mean giving them unlimited access to hurt you. And blood doesn't make you family. Loyalty, respect, and genuine love make you family. Maya didn't lose her family when she walked away. She lost people who were treating her like an ATM with a heartbeat. What she gained was something far more valuable, herself. If this story resonated with you, do me a favor. Hit that like button so I know you connected with Maya's journey. Subscribe and turn on notifications because trust me, we have more stories coming that will make you think, make you feel, and maybe even give you the courage to choose yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. You know who I'm talking about, that friend who keeps giving to people who only take. That family member who's always apologizing for taking up space. That person who thinks setting boundaries makes them selfish. Send them this. Let Maya's story be the permission they've been waiting for. Your scars, whether they're on your arms or your heart, they're not something to hide. They're proof that you survived the fire. They're proof that you earned your place. Don't let anyone make you feel small for taking up the space you've earned. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, choose yourself. Protect your peace. And remember, living well isn't just the best revenge. Sometimes it's the only closure you need. This is Revenge Red. Take care of yourselves out there.